All right, I'm recording and I'm ready when you are, Kristen. All right, hi everybody. Welcome to session 2. Again, my name is Maria Thomas, the founder of the blog My Life as a Puddle. And joining us this morning is Courtney from Sweaty Girl Club. Hey, Courtney. Please introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about you before we launch into some questions here.
All right, so my name is Courtney. I'm 24 years old. I'm in Canada for anyone else who is in this vicinity. Nice to see you. And I'm a sweaty person, so here I am with the rest of us.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you, and I just want to applaud your courage for being willing to speak out about hyperhidrosis. There's definitely a stigma attached to this condition, so I applaud your bravery. Can you tell me, just to get started, what's it been like, or what was it like growing up with hyperhidrosis?
Oh, absolutely terrible. I think a lot of us who grew up dealing with this ended up developing a lot of anxiety and maybe some depression surrounding it. I think hyperhidrosis, dealing with that shame and embarrassment and constantly having on your mind is, like a 10, 11, 12-year-old that's not what normal 12-year-olds are thinking about. So it's really hard to be so different, I guess.
Absolutely. And can you tell me maybe some of the coping mechanisms that you've developed over the years, or what was it like going to school on a daily basis? What was it like being in the classroom for you? How did you cope with all of that?
So I grew up in a really, really small town. So I went to school with the same people from junior kindergarten until grade 12. So everyone kind of, knew each other and knew how each other was. So there were certain things that people would continue to make fun of you for, notice about you. So I was definitely bullied for it, which made me really withdraw from social things. So a lot of holding back, doing weird things like changing my shirt 3 or 4 times a day at school. Every opportunity you had a recess or you had a lunchtime or something like that, like I would shove 4 or 5 shirts in my bag every day. And sometimes people would comment on it, and there were people that were mean and people that were nice, but shoving toilet paper in my armpits while I'm in class, just doing strange things. Everyone thinks you're doing weird things, but you're doing something to help yourself.
Right.
Always walking like this too, right?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks you're being very rigid, but you're really just so uncomfortable. So you're just trying to figure out how to fix it.
So you're doing all these things, you're changing your clothes multiple times a day, using a lot of toilet paper or tissues. Did you ever go home and ask your parents or your babysitter, or maybe, other family members, like, what's wrong with me? Did you go to the doctor? What was your journey trying to maybe find a diagnosis and or some treatment options?
So it started when I was around 9 years old. And for a few years I suffered in silence, but I did tell my mother early on, and my doctor, who told me it was hormones and that, I'm going to grow out of this and it's all going to be fine. And I sweat when I was your age too, just really discouraging stuff. And when it keeps happening, that just makes you feel so gross. And eventually, a few years later, my doctor was like, oh, try Drysol. So I obviously got bad rash. It didn't really help me. So that just made it worse. And around that point, I started only really wearing the color black. And yes. I wish I could show you guys pictures, but style, because clothes were constantly on my mind, style kind of became the only thing that I had. It was like, how am I going to cover up my sweat today and also feel cool? So I tried Drysol for a bit. It didn't work. So the dressing thing until probably grade 10, when I was prescribed Ditropan, which I'm pretty sure is actually for overactive bladders, but it took me, I think, a year and a bit to get into a dermatologist for it. And she wanted to do Drysol, and I'm like, no, do something. But Ditropan I developed quite the, what's the word, tolerance to. So I was on probably from like 14 until 21. And by the time I was 21, I was taking like 6 pills to try to not sweat.
Wow.
And my mouth would be so dry. And I remember doing that before like going to the bar and stuff, because, you know, college. And I would be just so sick the next day. And I thought it's just because I was like crazier than everyone else. But in reality, I was just extremely dehydrated because I was trying to stop this sweating all the time so I could do stuff with people, and just not caring about my health so that I could just not have that, right?
Right. And I think that dehydration problem can be difficult for everyone who has hyperhidrosis, even if we're not taking any medications that cause dryness as a side effect. You know, we're sweating so much more, so we have to be rehydrating more often than probably the average person does.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah. So is there anything prescription or over the counter that you're using right now that's offering you any type of relief?
So right now I'm just waiting to have some more Carpe, but that is basically the only thing that I can keep up with to work. Carpe is so easy to use. Like I can be laying in bed. Like I have a hard time with routine. So I tried Dermadry and I couldn't keep up with it enough to do it. But Carpe is really easy to use. I could be laying in bed and just smear it on my armpits and my hands, and good to go, I guess, for the morning. But it did work, and I quite like it.
Good. For people who don't know about some of the different treatment options available, Dermadry is an iontophoresis machine. There are several different iontophoresis machines in the marketplace. Ditropan is an anticholinergic. That's a prescription medication. Carpe is an over-the-counter cream. They also make antiperspirants for your underarms. There are lots of different treatment options. So make sure that you're finding a good doctor who can help you with this, and we'll probably get into this as well in session 4. But there's a lot of information out there, so just make sure you're finding the right doctor and looking at some solid resources online. Sweathelp.org is one of those resources, just so everyone is aware of that. Now, Courtney, as far as you talked about, some of those troubles that you had during school, what about hobbies? Did you pick certain hobbies or avoid certain hobbies because of your sweating?
So I was a competitive figure skater growing up, which a lot of my friends ended up going into synchro, and like that was a really big team part of it where they all skate together in arms and stuff. So I naturally never joined that synchro team because, whenever we would even just try stuff like that on the ice, different routines and I guess lessons that my coaches would come up with. Anytime anyone would have to hold my hand or touch me or anything, they would freak out.
Yep.
So do you think I'm going to go join a synchro team with these girls that don't want to touch my sweaty hand? No. And specifically for me, it was my best friends that I figure skated with, the girls that lived down the street and across the street. And I really lost my friends because they went off into this world that I didn't get to be a part of because it was too embarrassing and uncomfortable to be a part of that world. So my hobby was being alone and skating 5-6 days a week. Things that I could do alone where other people couldn't, I couldn't hand them this thing that was wet, right? I wouldn't drip on them while we're like making something, right? So, and again, making friends is hard when you're sweaty because, girls want to go and do things and like, I don't want to do things, I'm sweaty, It's just so hard to not feel uncomfortable and like people are staring at you.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I avoided similar things in school. I refused to join the band because I couldn't hold an instrument. Sweat would be dripping from my palms down to my elbows. So I joined choir instead. I hated playing Heads Up, 7-Up, and Red Rover. I hated learning how to square dance because we were forced to hold hands while square dancing. So I would constantly pull my sleeves down over my hands so that to have some type of barrier in between me and the normal dry boy whose hand I had to hold while trying to dance. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So, we have all of these just coping mechanisms, and we think, what we're doing is normal to us, but maybe it's not normal. So are there any habits or behaviors that have been detrimental to you, as far as maybe mental health or anxiety, and even just talking in general about the shame that those of us with hyperhidrosis might feel?
So aside from hyperhidrosis in general, I deal with a lot of mental health issues. And a lot of times when I post something, I'll have a panic attack an hour or two later and I'll delete a bunch of stuff. You guys probably see this. I'll have a lot of confidence 1 second and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, like this is so embarrassing. Everyone knows now, like I'm gonna go to work and like I'm gonna get made fun of behind my back, Of course, that's not totally something to do with hyperhidrosis where I feel like that, but yeah. I think a lot of us deal with feelings of overall like shame and guilt and like we can't take care of ourselves because there's something just inherently wrong with us all the time.
Right.
So
have you found though that talking more openly about hyperhidrosis has helped your mental health? Even if you're deleting stuff after the fact, just the fact that you decided to post it in the first place. I mean, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, it has a lot. I think I started this Instagram 1.5 years ago now. I remember when I did, I was just fed up. I had posted maybe 2 or 3 videos over the past 10 years about hyperhidrosis on YouTube and deleted them. Because I was like, there's probably so many people I want to talk to them, but then I'd freak out. So I remember the day I did it, I had just started my first real job in fashion and people were not understanding that I couldn't wear some of the clothes there. They would just tell me, oh, you can wear whatever you want. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. So talking about it has helped a lot. Before I started this Instagram, I talked about it in more of a negative way on a meme page. I don't know if anyone here came from there, but I think changing the way that I talked about it and having the way that all of you guys talk about it too made it so much better for me.
That's so refreshing to hear too. I think a lot of us, we have this sweaty inner monologue and we have all of these negative voices in our head telling us that we're not good enough because we sweat. And I just want to encourage everyone, don't believe the crap that you tell yourself, when you're in the midst of a sweating attack. I'm sitting here right now and my underarms are soaking wet, but it's okay. I'm going to love myself through that. So I would encourage everyone, even if you're not an advocate like I am, or Kristen or Courtney and Martin, even just telling one person can help you increase your confidence. So do something different each. Sorry,
that's a big reason why I started this, is because other people were like, oh my God, I sweat too.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Obviously, we're not alone. There are 365 million people worldwide who have hyperhidrosis. That's 5% of the global population. But again, there's still this big shame around the condition and stigma. But I feel like the more we talk about it, the easier it becomes. And we kind of grow our confidence little by little, drop by drop, the more we tell people about it. So anything else you want to tell us? I mean, Courtney, what's it like now being, a working professional and having a career with hyperhidrosis?
Yeah, so I work in social media and I work in fashion. So I do flat lays all day. I touch clothes and products all day. I'm touching my phone screen all day. There's a lot of spelling errors that I have to revise because my hands are funny. Wearing my camera strap is severely important because my camera will slip out of my hands and I don't want to break that. I often want to put on clothes and model them for the store. Like I used to do a lot of modeling, but then I stopped taking ditropan and stuff. So I started sweating again. So that ruined that for me. So there's a career path that I threw away because of hyperhidrosis, which is sad to think about. And then getting dressed every morning because that's my job,
Yeah.
is to dress up coolly and nicely. Getting dressed every morning is the hardest part. I'm sure we all relate to that. You're sitting there, you're dripping, you want to wear this cool shirt, but you're like, okay, like I can tell that today's going to be a really bad sweating day, but I can't wear any of the, like I have no clothes because I have to do laundry so often because I sweat in everything so much. Like it's it helps when I tell people.
Absolutely. Are there any types of fabrics that you prefer over another that are more, that hide sweat better or absorb sweat better or anything like that?
So I wear a lot of polyesters, which I despise because I am very into sustainable fashion and thrifting and such, which thrifting is okay for buying polyester. However, I won't get into this. But I like to wear a lot of mesh and I layer a lot. So like right now I'm wearing like this sweater has drop shoulders, which I find like I wear a lot of things like this. You guys probably do too. Cause like all my sweat's pooling in my armpit here, and just dripping down. This is thick. So thicker things, a lot of patterns. Patterns hide sweat marks really well. So
Yes, I would agree.
Always wearing layers though. Layers are the number one thing, and black. I am a big advocate of the black turtleneck with a tank top.
Yeah. As far as mental health goes for you, have you ever seen a therapist for your hyperhidrosis, or maybe just for life issues in general? What do you think about therapy?
So I've been doing therapy for over a decade now, on and off. Obviously, healing is not linear, my friends.
Yes, agreed.
Therapy helps a lot. I actually realized when I went back this August, lockdown affected a lot of us, and it's okay to go get therapy after this, FYI. But I reached out to her and I realized I'd never spoken about my hyperhidrosis and how it has affected me. So we've been doing a lot of talking about how that has helped in the progression of me being anxious and holding back in life, and how it has affected my life. So it's definitely a good thing to consider if hyperhidrosis is affecting your life, to talk to someone about it who's a professional and can actually reiterate something helpful to you.
Absolutely. And even if the therapist isn't an expert on hyperhidrosis per se, they're an expert on how to help you navigate your mind and maybe get rid of some of those negative thoughts that you're having because of your hyperhidrosis. I love therapy too. I've seen therapists many times over the years, not necessarily for hyperhidrosis, but just to be able to learn more about yourself and what's causing you to feel less than, because you are not your hyperhidrosis. You have hyperhidrosis and it's part of you, but it's not all of you. So if you want to explore therapy, I think it's really great. And therapy can look different for everyone. You know, you may be sitting across from a licensed therapist, or you may be sitting in a circle with your friends having some girlfriend therapy, right? Doesn't have to necessarily be with a professional. You know, a lot of people may not be able to afford therapy, or, you know, be able to go to an office right now because of COVID-19 and things like that. So just use your voice and speak up, everyone. You know, this is nothing to be ashamed about. You know, shame can sometimes be a choice. So you can make a different choice and choose not to feel so bad about the body you're in. You know, I've had days myself, you know, I'm 40 years old now, and I've lived with this all of my life. And I've had days where I cry over my stupid sweating. And it's important to feel those feelings and move through them, but not let them control you. Courtney, do you have any other just general tips for people who have hyperhidrosis besides like clothing and coping mechanisms? Like what else do you want to say?
Don't hold back from what you want to do because you're sweaty. Because like was said, it's not you, it's just a part of you, and we're so much more than what you think you're not because you're sweaty. You can do anything. You can. Like, I mean, figuratively speaking. You know?
Right. Absolutely. And I would say, do something each day that scares you, and if you get through it, great. So an example might be, I'm going to go shopping today and I'm going to stand in line and pay for my stuff, even though standing in line for some reason for me is a huge trigger for my sweating to happen. Or I'm going to wear this pair of shoes that I wouldn't normally wear to see if I can get through the day, maybe semi-dry. Just love yourself through each of those experiences. And your confidence is like a muscle. So the more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah, the more you do one thing that takes you out of the box, the more things you can do out of your box. It's a nice staircase of leveling up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got kind of a list here. I just want to make sure I don't forget anything. I think I've asked all the questions that we kind of touched on before we got online here. But again, just like you already said, Courtney, speak up, stop hiding. Like you don't have to go through this alone. There are so many resources out there. This right here is a resource for people. This is our hyperhidrosis family, and we can all learn from each other. And then also just ask for what you need, and set up your environment for success. So if I'm going to a friend's house, for example, I may ask them to turn their air conditioner down so that it's colder in the house. Or if they have a ceiling fan, can they turn the fan on for me? If they have a baby and I'm going to be holding their baby, can they have a kitchen towel or a hand towel nearby? So if I start to sweat, I can wipe my hands off so I don't get their baby wet. Just little things like that. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. And I already said this, but I can't stress it enough. Stop listening to the negative things that you're telling yourself. You're worth so much more, and your hyperhidrosis does not have to define you. There's a quote by Maya Angelou that says, I can be changed by my circumstances, but I refuse to be reduced by them. So just start making different choices, and each choice that you make, it's going to make your life better. I will drop a list of mental health resources in the chat in just a second here. But I know a lot of people may be struggling with severe anxiety and depression because of their hyperhidrosis. So, reach out, find a professional, find a dermatologist or a nurse practitioner, or just a regular doctor who can help treat your hyperhidrosis. And make sure the doctors are listening to you. If you go into the exam room and the doctor just blows you off and says, oh, you'll grow out of it, this is just, it's just sweating. Well, no, it's not just sweating, it's hyperhidrosis. There's a big difference. We're not nervous because we're sweating, or we're not sweating because we're nervous because we're sweating. And there's a big difference, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your candid and honest answers. So I'll go ahead and drop the info here in the chat, and we'll stay on here for just a minute or two, and I think Kristen will drop the link for session 3 into the chat as well. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, that was fun.
Yeah.